When one is horrible, it means that there is nothing that is objectively good and progressive that will come out of such individual.
If you have been convicted of an offense before and you have been pardoned, and anybody is trying to bring that up against you and calling you a convict, you have the power to sue that person for defamation.
Justice must not only be done, but it must be seen by all to have been manifestly done.
Every citizen has a right and every citizen has an obligation.
That a plea of ultra-virus acquit or convict is very different from the plea of pardon.
Trespass is that act that interferes with the peaceful.
No matter how minute this,
right? No matter how minute.
Who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Hello out there, you're welcome to another fresh episode of the program Justify Nigeria on ACNN television, reaching you from Abuja. On today's episode, we are going to be looking at the topic legal perspective of the ban of Twitter in Nigeria, part 2. My name is Anozechi Nomso, your anchor. A cursory look at the happenings of things in Nigeria reveals that the ban on the use of Twitter still rages on. Surprisingly, the federal government, through the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, has issued a statement that any person in Nigeria that is still using Twitter will be prosecuted. Similarly, the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, Nigeria Embassy, has directed all the media houses to deactivate their Twitter accounts in compliance with the federal government directives. It has since then drawn an angry reaction from Nigerians and the Western world who saw it as a threat to civil liberties and contravention to fundamental human rights. Some legal experts say that they are unaware of any law which makes it illegal to tweet. However, the Attorney General of Federation, Abubakar Malami, said that people will know what offense they have committed only when they are arraigned in court. What does the law say about such orders? Do you think that this order by the Attorney General will survive in any law court? What is the legal implication of all this? With me to make sense of it all is Barrister Ikechukwu Nwakama Esquire. He is a legal practitioner based here in Abuja, a member of Nigerian Bar Association, and also a member of Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and Conciliators. You are welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you so much.
You are still here again.
Thank
you
so
for
much.
coming. Thank you for coming.
It's really a pleasure.
Thank you. And the issue of Twitter ban or suspension or restriction, whatever, is still regional. That's what is still the rave of the moment.
Well,
and
definitely.
I begin to ask the kind of country we are. Now, for example, in general perspective, does an Attorney General has the power to prosecute anyone in Nigeria, generally?
You see, the word prosecute is not used lightly. You know, this is, of course, a power granted to the Attorney General that has the possibility of restricting somebody's liberty. So, under our Constitution, I think Section 174 and 211, of course, the Attorney General has powers to prosecute, to take over a matter that is already before the court, or to discontinue.
Oh, he has that power?
Oh, definitely. So these are powers granted to the Attorney General by the Constitution. But like I said, the powers or the name prosecutes is not used lightly.
How do you mean?
When you assemble some aggregate of facts and you're able to benchmark a law before those powers can be activated. So that's why I said, if you say you can prosecute anybody in Nigeria, I said, no, you can't prosecute anybody. I give you an example, you can't prosecute the president, you can't prosecute those with immunity, you can't prosecute diplomats who has immunity under the Vietnam Convention. And you can't just pick anybody randomly on the streets to begin to prosecute. That's why I said there are a lot of things that has to give rise for the use of the word prosecutes by the Attorney General.
Thank you very much for that enlightenment. Now, this issue of Twitter ban, we felt that the federal government have done what they're supposed to, and we now saw a statement by the office of the Attorney General himself saying that anybody using that Twitter will be, arraigned in court. And what is your legal assessment of that statement of the Attorney General to prosecute those people using Twitter?
Well, it is rather unfortunate that the Attorney General, made that statement. And I said this because the Attorney General of the Federation, as I understand it to be, is the custodian of the law. In fact, he should be seen as the law himself. He should breathe law. He should speak law. In fact, the opinion of the Attorney General should have some weight, even when you want to examine some certain facts. For the Attorney General to come out to say, we are going to prosecute any person that uses Twitter, is rather unfortunate.
Why do you say so?
If you look at our constitution,
Of course, on legal perspective.
oh, definitely.
Okay.
If you look at our constitution, for any person to be charged or tried for any matter, the law says that there has to be a law criminalizing such conduct. Remember, that law is a social engineering. So it tries to moderate people's attitude. There must be a law criminalizing that conduct and providing a punishment.
Oh, it's not only defining the law.
Definitely.
The punishment must also be there.
Be prescribed by the law.
Conjunctively together.
Oh, definitely. Now, this has been the position as far back as 1961. This is the case of Fagbemi. I think Aoko versus
Aoko against Fagbemi and another, yes.
Yes, which is one of the locus classicals.
Locus classicals.
You saw what happened in that case. The lady was accused of adultery. She was brought before a customary court. And in the customary court, she pleaded guilty. And, of course, she was convicted and penalties were meted against her. On appeal, the court said there is no offense in Nigeria or known to law called adultery. And that is still the position even as of today. So, under what law are you going to prosecute someone that uses Twitter? And that is why they said we'll let them know when we take them to court. And unfortunately so too, even the Attorney General had to also log into the Twitter platform to say that he's deleting his account. But again, like I did mention before now, you must prosecute people for offenses known to law. And those offenses...
Is that a constitution provision?
Oh, definitely. And those offenses the punishment has to be prescribed thereof.
Okay, where the punishment is not prescribed thereof, it cannot also prosecute the person.
Oh, definitely. It is a criminal. It is a criminal jurisprudence that for me to be punished. Again, if you look at some of the criminal legislations, especially the criminal code, they often create an omnibus clause that says where an offense is not penalized, the person shall be punished by 1 year imprisonment. So there is always that consciousness.
Okay, can't you made mention of omnibus for the betterment and purpose of
viewers. A general provision.
Okay, that's what the word omnibus means.
Yes, a general provision that allows that liberty to punish offenses that even though the punishment has not been prescribed, but the law has given the court powers to at least melt out some level of punishment to persons for offenses that maybe the draftman had or the makers of the law had unfortunately forgotten to make that punishment. Now, the essence is that from the day go, I should be able to know what I'm facing.
The accused person should
definitely.
What is his right to know?
To know what he's facing and what is the magnitude
of the offense.
Because it goes to the kind of plea he should plead. And we know that even there are some offenses that even when you plead guilty, the court is bound to record you not guilty.
How?
Oh, yes. Take for an instance, capital offenses. If an accused person comes to court and
the charge is being read
and he pleads guilty, the courts under our criminal laws will record the accused not guilty.
Even when he must have said guilty?
Even before the courts.
Why?
It is the provision of the law under the ACJ. Because the prosecution has a duty in law to prove the case you are presenting beyond all reasonable doubt. So because...
Okay, now counsel, what happens when he pleads guilty and the prosecution did not prove beyond all reasonable doubt? Will the judge discharge the person?
Now I'll tell you reasons why this law is a good law.
Okay.
You know, some persons, let's say, might commit murder And when they are brought before the courts, they will plead guilty. Yes, I did this. But beyond the offense, there are other circumstances that must have mitigated or given rise to the commission of that offense. The law is interested to question and interrogate the circumstances that led to that act, to know what kind of punishments should be given to that person. Yes, it might be murder, but by the time the prosecution will lay before the courts the evidence, the court might take an opinion that it is manslaughter. Because there are other mitigating factors that have given rise to this. Maybe he's insane at the moment he committed the offense. Maybe provocation. Maybe he was under intoxication. There are some defenses, of course, that the law may allow him. So that is the essence of the person who is walking into any court facing a criminal charge should know the provisions of the law, that he has offended, and what is the appropriate punishment. It is justice to the person who is facing prosecution, it is justice to the prosecutor, and also justice to the courts.
Oh, three-way traffic.
And again, beyond that, you now see that you now determine whether the offense is bailable offense or not. So you can't just wake up and say, I'm going to prosecute persons, when you as the Attorney General knows that there is no law in Nigeria prescribing or criminalizing the use of Twitter. And the beauty of it is that the particulars of that offense has to be proven.
Okay.
And those particulars has to be contained in the law.
Oh, particulars now.
Oh, yes.
You explain about these particulars when we come back for break. It's
Thank
becoming
you so
interesting.
much. Thank
And
you
please,
so much.
viewers, don't join us again. Hi, you're welcome to Speaker on ACNN Television, reaching from Abuja. On today's segment, we are going to be looking at the phrase that says, integrated Nigeria or disintegrated Nigeria. My name is Anozie Chinomso. The word integration is the process of making a combination of one or more to become an entity. This means that where integration exists, consolidation, unity, and collective strength is inevitable. Of course, one need not to bother himself about the meaning of disintegration, because the exact opposite of integration is definitely disintegration. When I look at Nigeria, when I imagine about Nigeria, when I talk about Nigeria, when I think about Nigeria, I am always engulfed with the risk of factual and unpretentious appendages that oftentimes make me to ask on whether we are living in an integrated Nigeria or disintegrated Nigeria. Where Labour Congress chairman of Cross River State was kidnapped and later released is an example of disintegrated Nigeria. In a situation where Mr. President contravenes Section 152 of the Electoral Act by nominating Ms. Lorita Onochie to become a commissioner for the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and sends same to the Senate for confirmation, is another picture of a disintegrated Nigeria. The suspension or banning of the use of Twitter in Nigeria, because Twitter deleted the tweet of Mr. President because he violated Twitter rules and regulations, is a clearer pointer to the fact that we are living in a disintegrated Nigeria. When and how did our political leaders become dictators and tyrants all of a sudden? Nigeria's current political leaders must be reminded that those who told these parts they are trading now ended up regretting at the end. If you doubt me, go to Central African Republic and ask of Jean Bede Bokassa. Go to Uganda and ask of Idi Amin Dada Ome. Go to Democratic Republic of Congo and ask of Mobutu Sese Seko Kumbendu wa Zambanga. Go to Ethiopia and ask of Mengistu Haile Mariam. These were some of the African leaders who thought at one time in this life that they were gods. They have monopoly of wisdom and violence, and they all died in regret and great pain. If only our leaders in Nigeria could learn from this, would definitely have an integrated Nigeria, instead of a disintegrated Nigeria. But the tragedy of humanity is that humanity learned nothing from history. How can an Attorney General of Federation, Abubakar Malami, issue out a statement of prosecuting anyone in Nigeria who still uses Twitter, where there is no existing law towards that effect? The last time I checked, this is more than a decade of years I have qualified as a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. The last time I checked, Abubakar Malami is the current Attorney General of Federation, and as such, both of us are very senior members of the bar, and thus we should properly and correctly guide and educate Nigerians on any issue relating to law and not to mislead Nigeria. Abubakar Malami must be reminded, if he has forgotten, that no person can conveniently and effectively succeed in prosecuting, let alone convicting a person whose definition and penalty of his offense is not enshrined in any law. If anyone tries it, the charge will be dead on arrival. That was the decision of the Supreme Court in the celebrated case of Attorney General of Federation against the former CBN Governor Clement Insong, reported in 1986 1QLRN, Part 75. I also refer you, Malami, in the case of Alko, Fagbemi, and another, 1961, One All Nigeria Law Reports, page 400. In the instant case of Twitter ban, there is no existing law or signed presidential executive order that has defined using of Twitter as illegal and consequently spelled out its penalty. Honorable Attorney General Abubakar Malami, you know about this principle of law now. Why drag this exalted and noble profession of law into the mud by further saying that when one is arraigned in court, he will then know the offense he has committed? Oh, I just remembered that this can only happen in a disintegrated Nigeria. May I further remind the federal government that this ban of Twitter is having a negative effect on Nigerian economy and also increasing the toll of unemployment in Nigeria. In order to justify Nigeria, I therefore speak. Until we all begin to love one another irrespective of our tribe, religion, ethnic extraction, and further see ourselves as one and use our collective strength and unity in diversity and fight against regional division, tribalism, and be ready to speak the truth at all times, no matter whose ox is God, in order to live in a developed, better, and secured Nigeria, we shall continue to live in a disintegrated Nigeria instead of an integrated Nigeria. My name is Sanoze Chinomso. I just want to speak. Hello, glad to know that you are still here. Yeah, and we are still here with Barrister Ikechukwu Nwakam, Esquire. Counsel, before we went on a break, you are trying to explain on the issue why the punishment of an accused person or the person you're about to arraign in court must be enshrined in law, and of course, the each penalty or punishment be spelled out.
Yes.
And that was to an extent of a particular level understood. But you made mention of particulars.
Yes.
Please take it up from there. What do you mean by particulars also to be there?
Okay. Now, for like I said, for every offense, the law has to define it. And the law defines it because the law in this aspects or in this context is used as social engineering to be able to regulate some conducts. So there are some conducts that the law will specify particulars or facts that when you put when you assemble the aggregate of those facts, you'll be able to come to a conclusion that an offense has been committed. Take for an instance, let me use stealing, an offense of stealing. You have to prove that, well, there was taking, there was an intention to permanently deprive the person, the owner of thing needs. So in that sequence, it means that something must have moved from one point to another point with the intention that the owner of that thing will not have access to it. So if I come and pick your pen just to mark my name and return it back,
you wouldn't say that stealing.
that I have stole, because I don't have any intention to permanently deprive you the thing in it. So what the law does is that they now define a set of conducts that is criminalized. And that set of conducts, there are facts or particular, like I said, the movement, the moving, the intention and all that, the attitudes and mens rea, coming together will not say, oh, he had committed an offense by doing X, Y, Z.
You mentioned another thing now, actus reus and mens rea. What do you mean by that, so that our viewers will understand?
So generally,
because we are here to educate our viewers.
Yes.
So you say actus reus and mens rea.
Yes. Maybe I should use more English language
so that they understand. Yes.
Okay. So in law, there are philosophies that guides conduct. Okay. Now, when you are punishing a particular conduct, the court must be satisfied that the person has committed the acts that the law penalized. Okay. That act is the actus rea.
Okay.
There is an act that you have done. That taking. Let's use the stealing as an example. The taking of that particular
biro or pen,
is an act.
Okay.
Now, do you intend to permanently deprive the owner the thing in it? Is the mens rea.
Intention.
What is the intention? You have to prove the mental, the mens rea, the mental elements of the person who is committing the offense and the acts. They must go together. The only exception where they don't go together is in issues of strict liability, where the law looks at it that once you have done a particular thing, your intention is meaningless. Take, for example, most traffic offenses are street liability offenses. Because, of course, once you beat a traffic, so your intention, the law may not look at it. They are street liability. Otherwise, the law requires that you have to prove the mental state of the person. And you also have to prove the acts, the actual acts that the person have done that the law criminalizes.
So in this instant case of Malame's statement, all these things are not contained. And that's why he said he goofed in law, because I remember he said it's the most unfortunate thing.
It is really unfortunate. And to be honest, if there is any law penalizing the use of Twitter, Malame will be the first person to say it before the public. So what they are intending to do is to see a way where they can qualify some conducts to be conducts that the law punish. But there is no law that punishes disobedience to the president. You have to disobey the law, and that is why in the last episode I told you that this is a constitutional democracy. And the beauty of constitutional democracy is that whatever thing we want to do has to be prescribed by the law. It cannot be left at the whims and caprices of those who feel that this is the way things should be done, including the Attorney General.
So his statement that people will know when they are in court is most laughable. That's what
definitely most laughable. Most laughable. In fact, under the ACJ, even when you want to arrest a person, you have to tell him the offense. So from the point of arresting the person needs to know what offense am I facing. When you take him, because the criminal justice system, when you take him to the police station or wherever you're taking him to, the policeman needs to know whether there are bailable offenses or non-bailable offenses. And of course, you need to charge him to court within 24 hours. Then when you charge him to court, before the court, you have to afford him the facility to be able to defend himself. And when he appears before the court, he also needs to know whether he can get bail or not. So there are chain events that leads to this.
So it cannot hold water. In fact, it cannot.
Definitely cannot, because as of today,
there is no law that
failed to tell us any law
that say that tweeting is an offense.
And the beauty is that the law has to be express.
No ambiguity.
Once there is an ambiguity, is resolved in the favor of the accused. So he needs to understand this. And I know he knows this because we are all lawyers. So the law must criminalize that act expressly. Any ambiguity in any criminal proceedings is resolved in favor of the accused. So he knows, as of today, there is no law saying you cannot express yourself in a particular means. Neither the Attorney General or the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria can be a law to themselves and then begin to criminalize some conducts that they feel
but Counsel, suppose there is an executive order, in as much as it is done. Suppose there's an executive order. Maybe they wake up tomorrow now and the president signs the executive order to this effect. What will be the state of law in that aspect?
In fact, there was, if I remember, there was one issue where somebody was arrested for not observing the restriction during sanitation. The government will always say no movement. He was arrested and brought to court. Maybe I will try and get it. That was quashed because they said the directive of the president is not a law. The directive of the governor, even if the executive order does not qualify as law. Why? Section 4 of the Constitution has prescribed those who have the powers to make a law. And those powers to make a law has to pass through the legal proceedings. If it is the National Assembly, there has to be law, bill passed to law. Even public hearing, where me and you will go and say, I don't like this. The social media bill, if you the receipt of social media bill.
It was thrown out of the window.
Because the people rose against it, say you can't. So there are procedures, even to the point of assent. Until that is assented and gazetted,
Okay, before it.
you will not say that we now have a law.
Now, Council, quickly
So
now.
executive order, of course,
we're not.
does not
Okay,
qualify.
now quickly now before we go, two in one. Do you think that this ban has any negative effect to the economy? Two, what do you think that will be a perfect solution why this thing will just come to be? So what is it? What is your take on that?
I was reading a publication by Premium Times where I think NetBlock took some statistics from World Bank and ITU, that's International Telecommunication Union, and they came to a conclusion that Nigeria is losing about 2 billion naira every day because of ban on Twitter.
2 billion.
2 billion every day.
Every day.
Yes. So I wouldn't know whether those statistics are correct or not, but as it is, they are statement of facts. Now, you have to understand there are some people whose livelihood depends on Twitter because they are employed for the purposes of managing Twitter accounts of some organizations. Locally, we are losing a lot in terms of employment, in terms of generation of revenue, even for the tax that is accruable to the
It means even the
government.
federal government is
losing. Because assuming we are using Twitter, of course, a amount of data will be consumed, and those data are paid for, and they are taxed under the Finance Act and under the BOFIA 2020. You have to tax them, and then make returns to the federal government. So we are losing that. In the eyes of international agencies or investors, international investors, nobody wants to come to Nigeria to come and invest when the will or the emotions of the president now determines the economic policy and what businesses should survive and whose businesses should cut down. So it affects us. And the only way we can resolve this,
which way out?
we have to follow the law. There is no way out. Every constitutional democracy must respect the rule of law.
Respect to the rule of law.
Even if you want to take an action, you must confine your actions within the law.
Confine your actions within the law is his take. Barrister Ikechukwu Nwakama, I want to appreciate you. And I believe that the federal government and people concerned are listening to you.
Thank you
and
so
I
much.
pray they will take your advice.
Thank you
so much. And when next we call you, please find time to oblige us.
Always.
Of a fact, the Attorney General is the Chief Law Officer of the Federation or state as the case may be under the principle of nolle prosequi, which is contained in sections 174 and 211 of 1999 Constitution as amended. The Attorney General of Federation and that of the state has the power to institute, take over or discontinue any criminal proceedings against some persons or a group of persons in any court of law in Nigeria except a court-martial. That was the decision of the Supreme Court in the States against Adele, 1989, 3 Supreme Court, Part 11 at page 7. However, we need to educate our viewers on this program right now and here that no one, including the Attorney General of Federation or even the President of Nigeria, Abubakar Malami or President Muhammadu Buhari, can conveniently and competently prosecute any person whose penalty of the offense or the offense is not captured in the law. This was the decision of the court in Attorney General of Federation against the former CBN Governor Clement Isong, 1986. It was reported 1QLORN, page 75. It is based on this case law and legal facts that I found this statement of Abubakar Malami to prosecute people that are still using Twitter in Nigeria to be unfounded, baseless, unlawful, unacceptable, and a mere academic exercise that holds no water. This is where we draw the curtain on today's episode of Justify Nigeria. Join us same time, same station, another fresh episode of the program. Until then, this is Annonciation, so wishing you the very best, and bye for now. When one is horrible, it means that there is nothing that is objectively good and progressive that will come out of such individual.
If you have been convicted of an offense before and you have been pardoned, and anybody is trying to bring that up against you and calling you a convict, you have the power to sue that person for defamation.
Justice must not only be done, but it must be seen by all to have been manifestly done.